here. We're going to start out with a lot of networking. So if you could just go around the room, introduce yourself, tell us say something about yourself, say why you're wearing that today.
This is Brian. I have to start. I'm Jennifer Valrose, and I'm a researcher upstairs at one of the research. Thanks for not having a lot of pressure on you. I do higher ed research. My name is Amy Polka, and I look at the public. My name is Robin Hill, and I work at Secretary of Publishing, and I'm doing that. I'm Karen Osborne. I'm a project director at UW Research. I'm also wearing that. Michelle Hanson. I'm a project director at UW Research. And if I knew I was supposed to wear that, I would have. Sarah Michael, Indiana, at UW Research. For today's webinar, I'm a job seeking stay-at-home mom with a PhD in political science, and I'm interested in further research. In Captivado, I work for the Minnesota Office of Continuous Improvement. I work on that department of education. And I took the day off today for this break, but I wanted to be here.
I'm Ruben Langdon from Public Health, and I'm trying to make a big joke. How many statisticians can get to the light bulb, and I'll let you figure out the
So, John, I currently work for NCPA about to transition to my name is Haishla Moore with the Anti-Climate Collection. Our operating
that's how correction research is right. Walk the box with actually. I'm Jessica. I work at Grant County. And today we're really happy to have Rob Dave, who will be speaking our research, survey research and program evaluation today. Rob is principal of Dave and Associates, state public opinion survey consulting firm, proudly in the 20 years this year. He's worked with international and local market research companies, including AARP, NASA, U.S. Air Force, ISMC, Minnesota, FedEx, Market Solutions Group, Social Market Research, and I'm sure others. He was 2 decades as director of success in Minnesota Poll, one of the most active media polls in the nation, for helping and as the past president of the American Association for Public Opinion Research. Been winner of the Innovation Award for helping develop a way of communicating with survey non-research. He's a fellow at the Midwest Association for Public remember the cards up here and you all have one. You can go on through those more. So with that, Rob, you will make the whole speech.
Thank you, Doug. Good to be back. Are we up and running now? That's the only reason I asked that is I wanted to make sure I had my thumb on the correct clicker. Last time I was here was about a year ago, I think, and it was so much fun for me that I agreed to do it again. And one of the things that we ran into last year was there was not enough time for questions. So what I've done this time is shorten the slideshow a bit, incorporated a number of your situations, the issues that you have in your work into the body of the presentation, and then left some time for discussion, structured, and making any discussions again. Now, having said that, this is your meeting. If this is if you have a question, don't feel badly about jumping up and down and saying, "Hey, Rob, how would you do this?" or "What do you think about that?" So let's go ahead and get started. I don't have a joke, and I don't know the answer to that. Get us out of our
7 plus or minus 3.
Well, okay, I like that. I love light bulb jokes. As some of you may know, I play a banjo in an old-time string band. Old-time music is a traditional form of music that was usually had fill banjo and guitar, and was kind of the standard before electrons were invented. So how many old-time musicians does it take to screw in a light bulb? It takes 4. One to screw the light bulb in, and the other 3 to whine about how electronics have just ruined the music. Okay, so let's get started. To incorporate our survey research into evaluation, program evaluation, we first got to understand program evaluation. And to do that, we social scientists love to create typologies. So I've done a mini review of the literature and developed a typology of evaluation research. One is needs and feasibility assessment. And by the way, this is semi-chronological, you'll notice. Another is program monitoring, another is process evaluation. One is context evaluation, and then the other is outcome evaluation. This one and this one seem to be the bulk of what we do if we are doing program evaluation. I'm going to tell you about the most interesting program evaluation I've ever done, and I'm not going to talk about it until we come back to it again. Now, we do this because I want to challenge you, methodologically challenge you to figure out what the problem with it was. When I worked for the Star Tribune, in addition to doing the Minnesota poll, I served as a consultant to the special projects. Those are the investigative reporters. Served as a consultant to them, and they were doing, in the mid-1990s, a project on rapists, pedophiles, and other sexual offenders. And they wanted to understand why there were so many repeat offenders. And so what we did was went to SJIS, the Supreme Court Justice Information System, and said, "Welcome, come on in." Door slamming doesn't bother. Oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, hey, Kathy. So we went to SJIS, the Supreme Court Justice Information System, and found out that in the previous 10 years, prior to when we started, there were 900 and I believe it was 64, somewhere more than 900 first-degree criminal sexual offenders. incest offenders, rapists, and pedophiles. And we cut a deal with the BCA. For you non-Minnesotans, that's the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And they let us go search their records for reoffenses, both sexual reoffenses and non-sexual criminal reoffenses. And we worked with a consultant from the University of Oregon, Lena Furby, to develop a measure of recidivism. Now you'll know that that's harder than it looks, because your data are not right justified. In other words, somewhere or other, somebody's going to die, but a lot of people aren't, and they're going to keep on going, but you guys stop your study at some point. So what we found was, and while we were doing all the data work, the reporters were out there interviewing rapists and interviewing victims and interviewing cops and psychologists and so on, and did all these wonderful profiles. And we were doing the number crunching. And so what we were able to do is find out there were less than 30, fewer than 30, I think there's maybe 24, 25 people who had actually gone through the treatment program in one of the state mental health, secure mental health facilities, and had been recently released. Now, you all know, if you've been reading the news over the past couple of years, that's a huge issue right now. We have so many in there, they're crowding the facilities, and there's no strong guidelines about when to let them out and when not. And when they do go out, what do we do with them? Well, one of the reasons that that's the case nowadays is because of our work in the mid-90s. Because we found that treatment made very little difference in the recidivism rate of first-degree criminal sexual offenders compared with those sex offenders who had not gone through treatment. Okay, I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to let it run in background for you. I want you to critique that in terms of program evaluation. So here's our research psychology. We're going to go through it. We first talk about needs and feasibility assessment. Generally, we do that before the program actually starts or expands. If you haven't done that, you really need to build a budget for it. We try to identify the demand for new services or gaps in current services. We try to help determine goals, objectives, program activity, structure, resource requirements for the upcoming program. You all know most of this, but I just wanted to review it so we're all on the same page. And it can help determine if our objectives or the objectives of the program can actually be accomplished within a particular time frame, usually a budget year or two. So, how do we do these kind of things? I guess I really should tell you what we're going to be doing over the next hour. I'm going to take each of these 5 ways of doing a type of program assessment, talk about some suggestions, and then give you some examples. And I'm going to use in those examples some of the things that you sent to Doug earlier. And then we're going to talk about more stuff after that. So the first thing we should do is qualitative. We as quantitative methodologists often, let's see if I can do this well if I focus on, look down our nose at qualitative research because you know it's not as precise. Well, if we do that, we're ignoring one of the basic tenets of good survey research, and that is to start off understanding the problem. If we don't, we're going to make a mistake. That's called specification error. If you don't understand your objectives, if you don't have solid, actionable, and I hate that word, it does work here, actionable objectives, you're not going to be able to write a questionnaire that does the job that you need it to do. And to do that, you need to get into the heads of the client, the the service users or whoever it is that you're going to be measuring. We take the information that we get from this qualitative research, the in-depth interviews, that's what IDI stands for, focus groups or whatever, and identify these service demands and gaps. That's going to give us the raw material by which we can use, or which we can use to create questions and measures on a questionnaire. We combine that with this is the best cat toy in the world. We can combine this by with looking at the organization's goals and design a questionnaire content items so that we can create these quantitative comparisons. We can do the rank ordering questions or the max diff questions or the 5-point, 7-point, 10-point, 11-point, whatever your favorite flavor of importance ratings are, constant sum measures, whatever you need to do. You can use this first to help define that. Obviously, you're going to have to get the buy-in of your client, whether that's your department chair or your CEO or whatever. You're going to have to do that. So here's that. Those are some suggestions about needs and feasibility assessment. One of you folks doing park surveys. I love park surveys. They're fun. My favorite park survey is where one user group got together and said, hey, we need to do a park survey about this park where all of our activities go. And so they did a survey without telling anybody in the other user groups of the other seasons that they were doing the survey. And so the folks in the other seasons found out about it, of course. It's not part of this survey. You might find out about it. And just hit the list. Said, oh, okay, well, we'll keep our survey open a little bit longer so all the park users can get into it. Okay, so two questions came up with this. One, are parks appealing and provide their needs? And this was a park visitor survey. You come into the survey, you come into the park, and you get a chance to fill out the questionnaire, either happy questionnaire, that's paper and pencil interview, old term, we don't do that much anymore, or computer-assisted questionnaire, web questionnaire of some sort. But the big question was, we're creating a decennial comprehensive plan. We're creating a comprehensive plan to take care of our residents and their park needs the next 10 years. So how do we include low and non-frequency users to get more people in parks? Here was my suggestion. First of all, you do the qualitative research first to get at low and non-frequency users. That might be a set of, let's just say 5 off the top of my head, focus groups, 2 with non-users, 2 with low intensity users, and maybe 1 or 2 with people who are familiar with parks. And say, what do you need? What do you want? What do you do? What are your recreational activities? Why don't you use the parks? In a very nice, polite, moderator, non-threatening way. And then we take that to fuel the questionnaire design for a general population survey, either a dual frame RDB phone survey or an ADSS address-based sample mixed mode survey to include both users and potential users for parks. Those are expensive. That's why people call me. Those are what I do. I do them really well, and I do them a lot cheaper than somebody from New York City. So anyway, that would be the other thing. And then the next thing I would suggest is build measures that allow ongoing and special assessments. do your assessment the first year and say, here's what we need out of our parks. And then plan for your budget in this decennial plan, and every 2 or 3 year assessment of whether you're actually meeting those needs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that questionnaire is going to look like in this minute. So we also, in our typology of 5 different ways of doing program evaluation, we also look at program life. We track delivered services, the extent of use, the success, we count clients, and maybe measure client satisfaction. How do we do that? Well, about 25 years ago, a researcher came up with something that he called the Net Promoter Score. And this was the be-all, end-all of market research. It was a single measure. Say hallelujah, brother. It was a single measure that could do everything to get at the success of your company. Can you hear just a tincture of skepticism here? Skepticism. And here's how it works. It's based on the answer to one question on a survey. It would sound something like this. I've got it. What is the likelihood from 0 to 10, where 0 is not likely at all and 10 is very likely, of you recommending Anoka County Parks to someone else? And then you create the 3 categories. You take that ratio level data and collapse it into categorical data, and you create some right here. Those who rate it 0 to 6, they're detractors. Those who rate it 7 and 8 are passive promoters, maybe. And those who rate it 9 and 10 are active promoters. Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anoka, the great Anoka Sand Plain. We love our county parks. And then to create the score, you just subtract the percentage of detractors from the percentage of active promoters. And you track that over time as it goes along. And if your score remains stable, that's the one thing. If it starts going up, that does another thing. If it starts going down, maybe that's an early warning system. Because often when we do continuous evaluation, a survey every year, those are the things we're looking for, is our early warning things. Now, if you were just to do this and say, hey, look, Mr. CEO, our numbers are staying the same. That's good news. Because yes, but wow, revenue is going down, market share is going down. That's bad news. So as you can see, this is not a complete evaluation system, as much as the Harvard Business Group would be back in the 90s would like to make it think of this. And in fact, there's a lot of more recent academic research that says sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And often it doesn't when whatever it is we're trying to measure is often communicated by interpersonal buzz. Like, for example, youth organizations. If I work with as a pro bono project with the youth organization in the Twin Cities. They knew the national folks did the survey, did the Net Promoter Score, but they didn't give them really any information about it. So they said, Rob, can you help us out? Okay, fine. So I created the group who are detractors, the group who are passive promoters, and who are the active promoters. Green means good, red means bad, and yellow is in the middle. we'll come back to that fellow student in just a minute. And one of the things that we found was that the way that these youths, the organization or units that these youth were organized in, had really serious problems among the detractors. And how did we get this information here? We did something very right, and that is right after that closed-in question that asked the 0 to 10, they said, why do you say that? And I was able to go in and code those responses in the similar categories to see that values, the organization's values, is a huge attractor for this youth organization, more so than anything else. Structure and unit characteristics were the problems. So I was able to take this information back to the organization and say, you've got to get it in training program, boys. You've got to work with the volunteers, make sure that they communicate with parents and youth a little bit better. And they are in the middle of that right now. So, in this type of survey, or this type of typology category, we have an example. Our general residential county services surveys written after conferring with representatives of our 4 divisions and so on. It's not used very much for program evaluation at a very high level. Except at a very high level, we don't have the space to dig into the details a whole lot. We ask survey response to rate us all in all sorts of things. Now, I used to do this when I was starting. We would do a poll of Minneapolis residents and a poll of St. Paul residents and ask them all the same questions so we can compare on things like garbage collection, and snow removal, and road repair, and things like that. Basic city government stuff. We can do that. But unfortunately, all that gets you is a number that you can compare Minneapolis to St. Paul to, or Minneapolis this year to Minneapolis 5 years ago. Not quite as interesting. This county also does its general residential surveys in partnership with some other counties so that they've got comparison to those other counties, and it's all really, really good. So what the question turned out to be, what can we do to give our county commissioners ideas about really acting on this research? Some concrete things that we can do to make things better. This is the you've already got the survey, you've already got the data. Unfortunately, it's not an easy fix right now, but in the future it is. Because one of the things you can add is a question at the very end. I know if I capture it right. Here we go. Get respondents permission to recontact. At the end of the questionnaire, say, this survey is for Anoka County. We'd like to, if we need to do more research on this topic, can we talk about it? They say, yes. You've got a pool of people available for telephone IDIs or focus groups or whatever else. And the next thing you can do is reserve a section of the questionnaire for specifics. You've got these real high-level 7-point rating scale kind of things that may or may not give you a whole lot of information. For people who rate it 0, 1, or 2, ask them an opening question after why you say that. Not, you're a bad dog, you hate us. Why you say that? Just why you say that. Now, you're saying, but Rob, the questionnaire is already so full that we don't have room for more questions. That's an easy fix. Because you're asking so many questions now that I'll bet you a nickel to $1 that a lot of them will be done. So what you can do is use factor analysis and other clustering and correlation techniques to see which questions correlate highly with which other questions. And when you do a factor analysis, you get a factor score output, or your output will tell you which questions load highest on that, and which are lowest. You can use standard statistical techniques to tell which questions add to the index, if you create an index, and which don't. And so you can identify these redundant or less than useful questions. Get rid of them. Be cutthroat about it. And then you'll have room to do the next thing we're going to do. And that is, in between all of these wonderful high-level types of questions and your demographics, reserve a section each time that's open. You don't know what it's going to be from year to year. I'll bet you your county commissioner, or your park board chairman, or whoever it is that you work with, has some burning topic that he or she just would really like to know about. Put in a couple of questions, 3 questions, in that section that you've got open. So that would be my suggestion. Process evaluation. This provides feedback on the implementation, progress, and success to fuel all 4 of those things there: improvement, modification, documentation, and management. When you're doing process evaluation, I have to tell you, not my favorite thing to do. We, as survey researchers, manage a complicated enough process as it is without trying to go killing somebody else's process. But if needed, the only thing there's some recommendations I'm going to share with you, but if there's any one thing you take away from it, get a commitment to budget for it. So you need a lot of details when you do process management, the process evaluation. Think about, and so that think about rebuilding questions. Several years ago, been all that long, I worked with the Minnesota Department of Education's low influence disability learners area to do a program evaluation of their program. We interviewed teachers, we interviewed administrators, both administrators of low influence disability teachers and people like the school principals and district superintendents as well. And what we did was we took an open-ended question that looked just at strengths and benefits. Coded it, coded this open-ended question, put it into a word cloud, and this is what the word cloud tells us. This is a really dramatic way of telling your supervisor or your client what it is people like about the process. They like the training, they like the network, they like the fact that they're professionals. They like the workshops, they say it's valuable. What do they like less? Well, you can't see some of these very well, but lending libraries. They like those a lot, but not many people cited that as an example. They like conferences. They like consultants. They like the fact that this, by law, this program extends to rural people. Now, the good thing you can do is ask this, not just about strengths and benefits, but about the needs and problems as well. And this is often more informative. This is the feel good. Hey, we're doing this great. But here is where you really isolate where you need to work on, where they need to work on. Your research. There it is. They need to work on that. In this particular program evaluation, there needed to be a lot more awareness. It turned out that awareness needed to be much higher for parents, these kids were receiving this service, and among school administrators too. Often school administrators didn't know much about it. They needed better communication, less confusion, more training, budgeting for travel. Did you know that some blind with disability teachers have to travel hundreds of miles a day to get to their students in Minnesota? So this was more of a confirmation because the director of the program kind of knew all this, that she needed to quantify so that she could go rattle the money tree. That's what we're doing often in research that way. If you haven't figured that out, what we will is we're confirming what, or quantifying what a lot of directors and supervisors and CEOs already know, so that they can take it to their CFO or their budget people and shake the money through.
When you say coding, tell me more about that. You got the word code.
Oh, okay, here's the way word clouds work. You take an open-ended question, and let's say you've got the 600. I've coded these, you know how that is. You spend a lot of time coding, or used to. There is software that will actually code for you nowadays. If you have a fairly small sample, a couple of thousand maybe, it's more for the team, but it's worth to actually teach you how to use code. Just give it some training so you can do it. But the way it works is you take the verbatim answers and you create categories so that when somebody says, you know, I just wish that school administrators knew more about the services that we provide for our blind and deaf kids. That's awareness. I spend 3 hours a day of my workday traveling when I could be delivering services. That's right. So you create this coding scheme and categorize all 600 of those responses into a limited, workable number of categories, maybe 20, 30, 14, something like that. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Oh, and the cool thing about it is once you do this, you don't have to do it next year. Charge the same amount of money, but you just work. Word cloud, yeah. That's the best thing about doing word cloud. There are dozens of word cloud software out there that's free. So you just go in, what you have to do, each one's a little bit different about how it takes categories. But in this one, for example, it might be that you have to have a Word document with all of the different categories in it. And it will pick up the record frequency. And the cool thing about these things, if you like to be creative and design, you think you really got your design hat on, you can go in and change the typeface, change the color, and make it this way or that way, and it's just make a little fish out of it, or whatever you want to do. It's kind of, and it's really, really neat, because when an administrator sees awareness shouted like that, they know that they've got to get a publicity program out there to communicate to superintendents and other administrators about this whole thing. Context evaluation. I don't do much of this. It provides information about setting an environment where the services are delivered. It's often tailored to the needs of individuals targeted by the program, and you can measure social, political, economic, demographic, and cultural factors that affect context. This is hard to do. It's really hard to do. A few suggestions: evaluate both the providers and the clients. Don't neglect qualitative research, especially in-depth interviews, and especially early on in your evaluation. Don't forget about using ethnological methods. If you've been trained in ethnology, That's a very valuable tool if you know how to do citizen observation, for example. While surveys can be useful, they may take the form just as checklists, where you go to different sites, see, is this happening, is this happening, is this happening, that sort of thing. So we're going to move on to outcome evaluation. That's what we do more of, probably than anything else. We measure goal achievement or lack thereof. We determine unintended consequences, both positive and negative. This could be short-term or long-term. A good methodology for this is experimental design. Where are we in our? Okay, all right. 1:30. Gotcha. Okay. A good methodology here is experimental design. You want to. Okay, I'm going to tell you. See, I'm doing this as quickly as I can. I was asked as a subcontractor by a military service grant to evaluate how well their public affairs outreach to the movie industry is doing. Now, you all may not know this, but all 5 of the uniformed service branches, how many service branches are there? Uniform service branches. That's close. Coast Guard, Air Force, Army, Marines, and Navy, that's 5, and the Public Health Service. Remember we got a Surgeon General, they wear uniforms. Anyway, all 5 of the military service branches have public affairs office in this really nondescript office in Westwood Hills in Congress. And they're out there serving consultants to the movie industry and TV industry. And the general, who's in charge of public affairs for one of these branches, said, we want to figure out, are these guys really doing a good job? Well, what we told them was, we can't tell you. But what we can do is tell you whether movies with a military theme have an effect on the image of the military service. So they commissioned us to do this. We wanted to evaluate the movie content on audience's perception of military branches, because if movies do have an effect on the image of people in it, then these guys need to be out there helping the producers and the directors and the script writers do a good job with the training and service well. So we designed a field experiment, factorial design. We wanted to test 2 subject types, youth, age 16 to 22, and influencers, adults who had some connection to youth. We were able to advise them about military service. We had 3 stimuli. We had an action movie, that was one of the tests on manipulations. We had a character drama, another test. That's a test, not a test. And then we had for our control a non-military animated movie. And our dependent variables were the various image measures for each of the 4 military branches that we tested. So here's what we did. We invited people to come. We randomly assigned them to a test or control treatment. We gave them a questionnaire that measured image. We showed them the movie. Then we gave them the same questionnaire again and see what some. And if you're interested in numbers, here are, let's see, here do they have, and the factors that we controlled for was previous exposure to the movie or not, what market segment they were in, and which treatment they got. Did they see Transformers 1? Anybody remember that? No? You guys really are not a villain movies at all. I'm sure you didn't remember seeing a cable movie called Cable Machines. I'll tell you that. Everybody, oh man, people were weeping, literally weeping when they left the theater. It was a great movie. And in our control movie, and we sat around with these PA people for weeks. Days, I tell you, days. We sat around with these PA people trying to figure out which was the best movie to test. Transformers, you know, bang, bang, shoot 'em up, you know, kind of thing. Character-driven, taking chance, an Air Force lieutenant colonel who was assigned to morgue duty at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. And he assigned himself, instead of an enlisted person, to take a Marine who was killed in action named Chance back to his hometown in Montana. And our control movie was, you know, it's kind of fun. Ed Asner, the Boy Scout. Okay, so we've got Transformers, shoot 'em up action, taking chance, a drama, and then this nice little non-threatening, no military animated movie called Up. Now you can't see this very well. Red means there was an undesirable change in image on all of these measures over here, or the individual measures over here. Amber said there's no change, just like the stoplight. And green said there was a desirable change. So Marine Corps, you got to see Transformers. Okay, if you saw Transformers, you had a more negative view overall of the Marine Corps, a more positive view of the Air Force. Not much change in the Navy, and a slightly more positive change in perception of Army. Program evaluation. We evaluated these movies. Okay, what about taking chance? Almost all positive. Now, there should be all amber with just maybe a scattering of red and green for the movie Up. Down in many, many categories. What's going on? We couldn't figure it out. All of the best and brightest picked this movie because it was non-threatening, non-military, just really great animated piece of fluff. And they said, Rob, you've got to go figure out what's going on. So we did another round of interviews. We invited people back to watch 2 movies. Up again, and another animated movie called Rio. Right? And then we gave them, we did the same thing, pre-test, post-test questionnaire, and we scored it. And everybody who scored Rio, who scored Up negative with respect to image, we took them out of the room and into a focus group and said, what's going on? And here's what was going on. You remember the dogs? They were the soldiers. And the bad guy who was in the blimp, he was a general. And you remember the Air Force? The dogs flying the airplanes? Like that. Really bad. Really bad. And they were after Kevin, the big ostrich. You know, that sort of, they were after Kevin, and Kevin was just. So it did have military aspects, and these are some of the unintended consequences that you have when you don't do your research well. Start with research pretty well, but we found this out. But we also found out and communicated this to the Air Force PA. What you do is extremely important because what people see is interpreted often in subtle ways that, in mass media, that can be quite surprising. Okay. You have the ability to go and pick these out. Okay, you can look at this on YouTube. I'm not going to go over this, but these are some of the ways you can think about stuff in questionnaires, some of the types of questions and issues that you think about when you're designing questionnaire program evaluation. I'm going to skip through those, except for this one. Build in sections. Early in the questionnaire, do that for your high-level measures that you're going to do over and over again every year. Make your middle section optional one-time questions that will really measure something really specific and actionable. Use your last section for demographics. Be sure to ask open-end questions for key problem areas, especially if, and you can do this in a web survey pretty easily, if they rate something low, then ask them as your follow-up question, why do you say that? And get people's permission to call back and participate in further research. And that's really going to give you their own words, very powerful. Let's try and channel this way. Their own words, very powerful, very powerful. Their own words, very powerful, to get right to your plan. Okay, here are some of the work examples you sent me. One thing we'd like more information on is the best practice for improving responses to online surveys. We don't use panels, but rather our customer list. We're not sure if Rodney has any information on that. We don't think it's his bailiwick, but maybe we can have a discussion about what others are doing and learning in this area. Let me tell you, folks, if you're doing survey work and you are not attending to the current research in non-response, then you're not doing yourself or your client or your company a favor. You've got to keep up with it. But I can tell you, back when I got the Innovators Award from A4 some long time ago, when we first started studying non-response in a really detailed way, and we were able to figure out a way to compute actual response rates better than the casual response rate. It turns out that we've learned a lot by doing that. One of the things that we've learned is you've got to use two social constructs when you create your web questionnaires and all of the associated things that you use to talk to clients. For example, the introduction email, your questionnaire email, or the words that the email sends from the link, the follow-up email. You got to plan this out ahead of time, and you've got to do 2 or 3 things. First of all, use the salient skills. Bob Rose came up with this. He's a conversation director. He's the biggest survey in the world every year. Actually, every year, you think about what they say, what the salient skills say, is if you can find a way to make it interesting, the salient skills you're going to have a higher response rate than you send out to. And how do you do that? Well, one thing you do would be to identify your client. We're Dave and Associate Research doing work for universities and county government often, especially in Minnesota, have a higher, a better positive data than do garden variety generic data and research. Use that as a leverage to make it more studied, more interesting. The other thing you use is social exchange skills. I'm going to do something, you'll give me your data. Now, what is that? First of all, you got to create trust. I'm not going to tell anybody to do that. It's all going to be confidential. In fact, it might even be anonymous if you set the web survey site. What I am going to give you, if you promise to give them the results later on, if they're interested, I'm going to give you less pain than somebody else might. In other words, it's going to be short. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fun. People have told us that surveys like this are a lot of fun. They've had a lot of fun. So what you want to do is give them something for the data that you're giving back, that they're giving back. So having said that, those are the 2 things that I do. In the subject line on the introductory email, I make sure the word short is in there. I've done some research that looks at health, short, and important. People see through that. And they report it to you, pal, but not to me. Help, I get requests for help all the time. Go away. Short, okay, maybe if it's not,
What's the full subject line that has a new source?
That's kind of up to you. University of Minnesota needs your help with a short survey.
Okay.
Here's where it
You on ten.
is. Yeah, okay. So you see the sort of thinking that goes into this. We're going to leave the discussion for a few more minutes. Ask the judge our success of our program based on the tobacco surveillance rates from the DRFSS. Everybody knows the behavioral risk factor surveillance survey that the U.S. does every year. Actually, it's an ongoing rolling sample. How can we say that our rates have gone down? That what we've done, our program has contributed to those lower rates. Can you speak to the strength and weaknesses and accuracies of the plan? All right, folks. Do the brain trust. If I were answering and somebody had a
I
thought.
said it depends.
Yeah, okay, on.
Well, I guess I don't know enough about the statewide program with the data, but I mean, you could say your program is targeting those populations where rates are going down, and at a big enough scope, then I think you could make a claim that you're a contributing factor to that.
Okay.
Parents,
Another similar study.
the more demographic,
It's not happening
only
nationally.
Yeah, until you have an experimental design or random assignment, this kind of stuff. You can do all the analysis you want to and all the analysis you want to, but without an experimental design, this kind of stuff. So, how would we use the survey research to determine if the county's propensity and opportunity goals are being met? Prosperity and opportunity. These are high-level goals. We have specific community indicators that we track. How can we survey research use to help determine how well we're doing? How do we get a representative sample? How can surveys be conducted? We have cell phones and not landlines. Do a dual frame RD sample. If you don't know what that is, I'll be happy to chat with you after. Or an ABS sample, address-based sample. You can buy both from reputable sample providers, like Scientific or Survey Sampling or MSC. How do you make sure you get a representative sample? That's basic survey research. You got to have good quality assurance control and evaluation data. I specialize in that. How can survey research use to determine how well we're doing? You're going to have the high-level measures, but again, like we were talking about with Anoka County, create a section in the middle of the questionnaire. Ask them specific questions. Among people who are rating poorly, ask them open-end questions. Do qualitative, maybe even after you do the survey.
Let me just say, that the, proper analogy, the kind of have the room for another topic, open topic question. But if you really use now, use the time that we're going to
Okay, so unlike church, if you walk out, the preacher is not going to frown at you. And unlike church, and like church, the preacher will stay and be happy to chat with you about this wonderful theology that y'all subscribe to called survey research methodology. So please feel free to come up and chat. I've got business cards scattered around. If you miss getting one and really want one badly, to put in the spokes of the kid's bicycle, if you can do that, I got some extras. You're welcome.
Hey, Rob, have you done any other
There's been a lot out there.
I mean, we do a lot too, our own services.
Yeah, I went into it last year with this group. And there's a best way to understand it is not.
Yeah,
Cash is the best.
right, that's what we do.
Cash ahead of time is the
We use a card, but it's so hard.
best.
Everybody gets one, you know, everybody gets an Amazon card that does that. So, trying to game the system,
Yeah.
so we intend to do it long, and we're not sure how
Drawings.
much pull it really has.
Not much.
Yeah, but it feels like, I don't know, it's dumping out there, like, it's expensive and a little, and it does have an effect, but, positive effect, but I just wonder what that, you know, what that silver bullet, you know, what is it?
Yeah.
Because it's so
The
hard.
silver bullet is a common piece, actually.
Almost male 30%.
Right.
Yeah, we do, yeah, we were close to that.
Yes, the creative question fill out. When you have variables on the side,
Yeah.
guide information from your don't do more than 4 or 5 or 6 groups at a time.
Literally just break the question with every page, then you just keep going.
Because what you get